I now welcome Diani Barreto. Diani is born in the United States, so we'll also speak in English. She's a media activist, artist, lives and works in Berlin.
Hello, thank you for coming today. I'm here today as a concerned U.S. citizen to share some thoughts with you concerning America's most prominent political prisoner, Bradley Manning. Why do I say political prisoner? Because the nature of his acts were indeed political, and the government's aggressive and vindictive assault on Bradley Manning is also political in nature. A political prisoner acts according to his conscience, and to paraphrase the great Martin Luther King, he or she may willingly break the law and accept the penalty to arouse the conscience of the community over its injustice, and is in reality expressing the very highest respect for the law. I am here to tell you that a campaign of terror is being waged against free speech in my country, and the voice of truth-tellers are being stifled, and they risk lifelong confinement, financial ruin, or potential death penalty for treason. Bradley Manning blew the whistle on the U.S. government and is one of those truth-tellers. Today marks his 4 years in prison for the leak of 3 historic bodies, which exposed war crimes, abuse, and corruption. Whistleblowing is a safety valve in our society. It's the last instance, if you will, for issues that need correction and cannot be managed in conventional ways. Whistleblowers have played a very important role in our history as a corrective instance for malfeasance. President Obama, we need to protect whistleblowers. Bradley Manning testified and said that his conscience had led him to make the disclosures because it is public data and it belongs in the public domain. Those are the words of a true prisoner of conscience. Amnesty International and Human Rights Watch are refusing to acknowledge him as such. Amnesty International says it has to confirm whether the information was disclosed in a responsible manner. Since when does Amnesty International have to arbitrate on the ethics of information disclosure? I would like you to ask them, and please contact your local chapter and ask them to declare him a prisoner of conscience that he is. It could be a life-saving measure since he is being charged for aiding the enemy or having committed an act of treason. This all comes at a time when we are witnessing an unprecedented attack on the freedom of the press, where any leaks of classified information to any media organization could potentially be interpreted as an act of treason and be charged under the Espionage Act. President Barack Obama and Attorney General Eric Holder have used the Espionage Act 6 times to prosecute whistleblowers, more than all the previous presidents combined. Bradley Manning's case is also directly related to the Department of Justice's unprecedented invasion of journalists' privacy and the right to protect the sources. Journalists, their sources, and publishers are now equally under attack, with unconstitutional dragnet surveillance of journalists, such as in the case of the Associated Press, which revealed that the Justice Department had secretly obtained 2 months of telephone records of 20 reporters and editors, and the case of the Fox News chief Washington correspondent James Rosen, where his private mails and phone calls were monitored, and he also faces charges for conspiracy for allegedly receiving classified information from a source about North Korea. I would like to quote the legendary Pentagon Papers lawyer James C. Goodale. The press has a First Amendment right to publish information that is significant to the people's understanding of government policy. And what we are currently experiencing is a relentless war on whistleblowers, journalists, and information activists. And this war poses the gravest threat to our fundamental democratic principles. Bradley Manning did just that. He disclosed information that is significant to the people's understanding of government policy. Here is a quote from Bradley Manning's pretrial statement in February. I believe that if the general public especially the American public, had access to the information, it could spark a domestic debate on the role of the military and of our foreign policy in general. Now that we find ourselves embroiled in a perpetual war for many years to come, with the so-called global war on terror, the legality and morality of these missions are rarely discussed in the media. Manning spoke truth to power and challenged the government's determination to prosecute and to control the information to conceal criminal acts and war crimes. Bradley Manning knowingly violated the law in order to expose greater criminality, as Rosa Parks did in a monumental act of civil disobedience that changed the course of history. Or Daniel Ellsberg when he released the Pentagon Papers. These people are true patriots. They're heroes. They're not criminals or traitors. As citizens, thank you. As citizens, we have an obligation to expose war crimes and acts of misconduct and corruption. It is our obligation to expose injustice to the powers that be in a representative democracy. There is a de facto chilling effect now being felt in the free press in light of the series of cases which criminalize dissent, disclosure, news gathering, and publishing. Our very civil liberties are at risk. That is why Bradley Manning's trial is of such seminal importance. And yet the media, and by the extension, the US public, has been banned from witnessing the legal proceedings brought against Bradley Manning. And to quote Julian Assange, justice must be seen to be served. Secret trials are very commonplace in dictatorships and have no place in this country. The recent Justice Department actions against journalists and media outlets and the secrecy surrounding the trial of Bradley Manning sends an ominous message about how far the state is willing to go to prevent oversight of its actions. Amy Goodman said, access to court documents and proceedings in the court-martial of Bradley Manning is vital to the public's right to know to what lengths their government will go to keep secret their conduct of wars and their occupations abroad. One of the three enemies that Bradley Manning is accused of aiding is classified, the other two being Al-Qaeda and Al-Qaeda in the Arabian Peninsula. Multiple scholars have said that they have never seen a case involving a classified enemy. If Bradley Manning is found guilty of having aided the enemy, it will set a very dangerous precedent. And here I would like to quote Julian Assange again. If that precedent is allowed to be erected, it will do two things. Firstly, it means it's a potential death penalty to any person in the military speaking to a journalist about sensitive matter. Secondly, it also embroils the journalist and the publication in that chain of communicating, they would say, to the enemy, and therefore making them susceptible as well to the Espionage Act. Bradley Manning and the recent cases against the information activist Jeremy Hammond are amongst the highest profile in a series of cases that the Obama administration has been pursuing against information disclosure. What do Hammond and Manning have in common? They both disclosed information to WikiLeaks, and they did what they thought was morally necessary in the face of terrible injustices being committed. Truth is not a crime. Whistleblowing is not a crime. Denouncing war crimes is not a crime. I say Bradley Manning has done us a great service to his country and to the rest of the world by exposing the true costs of war, and that means the costs of the lives of the millions of innocent civilians in Iraq, Afghanistan, Yemen, Somalia, and the thousands of deaths of U.S. service personnel, as well as the 50,000 suicides of American military personnel. I invite you to take action, get involved, contact your local lawmakers and your newspapers and your congresspeople. Tell your government that Bradley Manning has served enough time, and tell them that truth-telling is not a crime. And I'd like to remind you that you cannot trust your news outlets if they are not reporting about this trial. Write your local media and demand insightful journalism. Free Bradley Manning, free Jeremy Hammond, free Julian Assange, free John Kiriakou, free Barrett Brown, free Anakata, and free Mumia. Thank you very much.
Thanks to Diani Barreto.